Today is a little bit of an interesting day. The first vision you will have seen is certainly everyone in this room now wearing masks and adhering to certainly the new restrictions we're placing on, obviously, in our meetings in the council building, and certainly through our council to minimise, obviously, and practice good health and separation during this latest wave of the COVID pandemic. It obviously is something we're going to learn to manage and live with, so these are the things we will be doing. So thank you to everyone who has pivoted very, very quickly to these new requirements for us, and obviously the benefits are that we will stay potentially as well as we possibly can. The other thing is, of course, is that Councillor Burns, in being very cautious, is making sure that he didn't come in today feeling a little bit unwell, but well enough to obviously make sure he can dial in, and the prudent thing to stay at home. So thank you, Councillor Burns. So you will note today in the chairing of this meeting, I will obviously record Councillor Burns' vote quite audibly, because in some way the live stream may not pick up exactly any vision of Councillor Burns, so I will actually articulate, you will hear his participation in the meeting, but I will certainly record his vote so that our live streamers can hear. Now, was there any reminders before we quickly start off today? To obviously, provided that your microphones are on and you speak quite loudly, unless you've got a particularly thick mask, I think most people will be audible, but we are allowing the fact that if that's not the case, that you will take your mask down and speak clearly to your microphone. So I guess we're just looking for a little bit of cooperation there so that we make sure that we capture all the meeting as well as we possibly can. So thank you, everyone. Councillors, Councillor Rolfe is going to do a civic duty at about 2:45. Certainly there's the Western Sevens are in Emerald today, and Councillor Rolfe will go there to actually catch up with the winners of that, the junior section, I think, of that competition. You will have noticed a substantial amount of people in town this morning. It's just amazing, and obviously all your activities. So Councillor Rolfe will leave the meeting at that particular point of time. So wherever we're up to, we'll just see how we're going. We might have a break if possible at some point. We've got a few things on the agenda there that will take us through this afternoon. A couple of things I need to thank councillors for. Thank you for your participation in events today. Today is quite unusual. We are having a meeting on a Friday for a start, which is a little different from our normal routine. Obviously the activities, some of the conferencing and some of our commitments we make have generally don't interfere with our meeting routine. This week council have been very flexible in allowing us to do that, and also the councillors were able to participate certainly in the NAIDOC celebrations in Blackwater today, so thank you to councillors that attended there. It was a nice opportunity to do that, and I attended the 25th celebrations of the Morris College this morning, so they had a very nice ceremony. I can hardly believe it's actually more than that. It's 25 plus 1 plus 1, but clearly the reason we're wearing the masks is the reason that they're 2 years behind. Miss Lisa Jeffgate, who's the Regional Director of Catholic Education, hopes that it being a school and people recording things properly, that they don't get out of sync and actually have their 100th anniversary 2 years late. But that was recorded today. She actually, in her speech, accorded her appreciation to the Emerald Shire Council and the Central Highlands Regional Council for their ongoing support over a number of years, and certainly I articulated with her, the significant contribution that I think Mayor Paul Bell was instrumental in actually creating that school and the opportunity for that to be there, and what an incredible educational facility and opportunity and choice that was actually created for this region more broadly. And you all know the impact that particular school has had, certainly on the young people in this community, and they were a fine bunch of seniors leading the school through that ceremony today. So very, very glad that our council was represented at all those events, so thank you, councillors. All right, now moving on to our agenda in terms of our presence here today, we have leave of absence as previously recorded for Councillor Moriarty and Councillor Carpenter. So would someone move that we accept their apologies for today's meeting? Moved by Councillor Curtis, seconded Councillor Brimblecombe. All in favour? Councillor Burns has indicated that he's voting in favour. Thank you. Against? Thank you, councillors. Now, leave of absence required for forthcoming meetings. It's a little bit hard to believe, isn't it? We're all sitting here with masks on and saying, are you all going to stay well? That's good. All right. No,
I should already have one recorded.
that's all right. Thank you, Councillor Cypher. Yes, we've got yours recorded. All right, no other leaves of absence is required. Thank you. And, well, particularly we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today here. And it is very, very pleasing to see that in all the events we're attending, the accord that exists within our local government area certainly, and moreover pretty much all across our region, in acknowledging the right people in the right places. So we pay our respects to certainly the organisations who and First Peoples that have such a long, enduring relationship with the land on which we meet today, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Councillors, the next agenda item is our confirmation of the previous minutes. So that's from the General Council meeting of the 13th of July. Would someone like to move those, please? Moved by Councillor Brimblecombe, seconded Councillor Rolfe. Let's do what we normally do and actually just check those out, please. I think we sort of did some delegations, some show holidays that were recorded, a couple of amendments to the fees and charges register that we'll actually receive in this meeting today, are the deferred agenda item. So, councillors, happy with those? All in favour? Councillor Burns is indicating he's voting in favour. Against? Thank you, councillors. That's carried. Any business arising out of those minutes? I think, councillor, they're pretty straightforward. So go, Councillor Brimblecombe.
Sorry, it's a spelling mistake on a page. Decision action report.
All right. Oh, yeah. Different from a Dexion. All right, thanks, Councillor Brimblecombe. We'll make sure that that's obviously corrected in there. Councillors, in that review of outstanding meeting actions there, you've got a copy of those at the back of it or in your agenda. And as I've said before, they're following very closely behind our agenda, so there's usually those matters are being dealt with quite quickly. Is there anything in there that's actually a burning issue for anyone? Excellent, thank you. Councillors, upcoming agenda items, I'm just going to refer this to, unless there's a specific request for something in that section there, there's a process we've identified quite clearly now, so if there is something that needs to be added or something that needs to be modified, you will let the relevant officers know. Councillor, conflicts of interest of any agenda today, is there any conflicts? All petitions tabled, CEO.
No more.
All right, councillors, we get to our decision action reports. And as I said before, important that we get to a microphone, and if you choose to and you're sufficiently happy in your location, you may remove your mask and actually speak to those, so for all the officers in the room. The first one we have is actually under communities. We have our Acting General Manager, Lisa Donlan, in the room today, and she might introduce this agenda item which relates to the development application fee reduction for an application CHA 009-2022. So I'll hand over to you, Lisa, if you'll do the introductions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, as you mentioned, this report is a request for a development application fee reduction by Blackwater Quarries. I'm going to hand over to Rebecca McDonald to take council through the details.
Yeah, right-hand side one. Beck, if you turn that on, it should come on. Unless, of course, it doesn't. There we go.
Thank you, Lisa.
I think it might have just dropped off again there, Marnie. You might have to... referred to you as guest one, Rebecca, so for
Thank
those
you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, so, yeah, thank you, Rebecca.
Good afternoon, everyone. Through the Chair, the purpose of this report is to present a request for a development application fee reduction to Council for decision. Ausrox, on behalf of Blackwater Quarries, has lodged an other change application which seeks to change an existing development approval for the Bedford Weir Quarry. The applicant has also lodged a request for a development application fee reduction to council, and council officers have not commenced the assessment of this application just yet, as the application fee needs to be paid to council before any assessment or determination can be made. The existing quarry was approved by council in 2010 for an extractive industry up to 300,000 tonnes per annum. In June this year, the applicant lodged a change application, or an other change, seeking to expand the pit area of the quarry. The information provided with the application confirms the change does not involve any increase to the overall annual output of the quarry, and it will remain at 300,000.
Just excuse me, Rebecca, can you get your microphone and bring it round to the side and get a little closer? Because Councillor Burns, it's the optics, the audio in this room is sometimes a bit problematic, so go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So just confirming that the overall annual output of the quarry will remain at 300,000 tonnes per annum. No change to the hours of operation or number of vehicles travelling to or from the quarry are proposed either. However, another change application is required in this instance because the expanded pit area encroaches into state mapped regulated vegetation and therefore triggers referral to the state government for assessment in accordance with the requirements under the Planning Act. As per council's fees and charges, the prescribed fee for this type of change application is 50% of the current development application fee, or $58,980.75. The applicant has requested the fee be reduced to $11,796.15. The requested fee reduction would align with the application fee that would apply if a minor change was triggered, which equals 10% of the current application fee. The fee reduction request requires council approval, as the proposed fee reduction exceeds the manager's delegations provided for in council's fees and charges schedule. Council officers are of the view that the reduced fee amount better reflects a fee specific to the type and nature of the application, and it is recommended this amount be applied as the development application fee. The officer's recommendation seeks approval from council for a fee reduction from $58,980.75 to $11,796.15. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Rebecca. So I don't want to oversimplify this. It sounds like a lot of money, but clearly the fact that the expansion of the actual pit itself actually triggered it only by the fact that it actually protruded into, I guess you'd say, the mechanism, I guess, with the state. So it's not necessarily an error in terms of calculating the fee. It was actually the fact that the provided geographics obviously triggered that mechanism.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Councillor. Any questions? So those calculations as well, Rebecca, they're the proper calculations as if it was one or the other, so they're not a sort of a calculation that's actually been done by the applicant. That would be the actual standard fees. Yep.
Yeah, so through the chair, so that's correct. So if an application came in, if they triggered what's called a minor change application, it would be calculated as 10% of the application fee that would apply if it was a completely new quarry. So it's 10% of the 100% fee, if that makes sense. For an other change application, our fees and charges schedule requires the fee be 50% of that original application fee. So what we're saying is because it triggers an other change because of a state requirement and it requires a sort of assessment by the state for that matter, our assessment of the application is really quite limited and small scale in that regard. So that's, yeah, the grounds for that reduction.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. It looked significant, but I mean, clearly it's just a small trigger that's actually been activated here. All right, councillors, the recommendation is that we approve that fee reduction from the $58,980.75 to $11,796.15 for that particular application. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Daniels, seconded. Councillor Curtis. All right, councillors, those in favour? And Councillor Burns is indicating he's voting in favour. Against? Thank you, councillors. Carried. Thank you very much, Rebecca. I will keep an eye on you, Councillor Burns. I see that it hasn't been done yet, but someone hasn't managed to move or propose a second motion from the virtual platform, so there will be a first here today, I'd imagine, if all things going fair and equally. Councillors, the next agenda item is still sticking with certainly communities and Acting General Manager Lisa. Glenn Bell, our Coordinator Disaster Management and Community Resilience, is here to deliver this report, which is seeking endorsement from the Local Disaster Management Plan. Lisa, so.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As you've mentioned, Glenn is here to seek endorsement of the Local Disaster Management Plan. I'll hand over to him immediately to take councillors through the report.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. It's with pleasure that I present to you the Local Disaster Management Plan, which has been comprehensively reviewed to bring it in line with emergency management assurance frameworks, standards and revised guidelines, and other changes that have been brought forward at state and Commonwealth level. The version before you, 7.1, was approved by the Lgiq at its meeting 8th of June 2022. Members of the CHRC LDMG undertook an annual review of the Local Disaster Management Plan. This is required for compliance as per the requirements of the Queensland Disaster Management Act 2013. The outcomes of the review identified a number of significant changes to guidelines, associated plans, and was also triggered with the release of a new revised state and Commonwealth manuals, handbooks. These included the introduction of Queensland Prevention, Preparedness, Response and Recovery Disaster Management Guidelines, that's a mouthful, Queensland Emergency Risk Management Framework, Emergency Management Sector Adaptation Plan for Climate Change, the revised Queensland Disaster Management Plan. It also included, relevant departments and roles and responsibilities due to machinery change of government, changes in local planning instruments, the introduction of the Queensland Strategy for Disaster Resilience, the introduction of the Queensland Recovery Plan, and also the release of Central Highlands Regional Council Corporate Plan 2022-27. This plan incorporates best practice and sets out the strategic direction and will provide a strong platform for Council's delivery of disaster prevention, preparedness, response and recovery activities and a safer, more resilient community into the future. Mr Mayor, it's with great pleasure I put forward this plan for endorsement by Council.
Thank you, Glenn. And obviously, Councillor, as you can see from the volume of your agenda, there's it's the inclusion of the actual plan itself that's made that fairly bulky. Can I just say only a couple of things, Glenn? I just wanted to clear up, and I could do this just in page 3, and I did check the message that I wrote. There's a couple of spelling errors in there. On page 3, the right-hand column.
If I could, Mr Mayor, since this was issued to Council to make sure it got to the meeting, it's now been put through our spell check at our corporate comms. Those errors have been picked up along with a number of tables that had blended that we needed to repair. So all of those repairs have been done. No structural amendments were done to the plan. More it was that physical look and grammar.
All right, thank you. And it was only just the fact that the last paragraph was a more concerning one where I referred to the Regional Disaster Management Group having a level of competency but being an experimental group. So
yes.
I was hoping that was an experienced group of people.
Yes,
so
that has been.
No, thank you, Glenn. And that was the only thing. But I guess in terms of the structure, and can I just reiterate some of the words you say here? I mean, I know there's a lot of work that goes into these. Can I say, however, in terms of recent, I suppose, activity from a disaster coordination perspective, even when we've sort of, I guess, broadly been adopting practices around certainly this health pandemic, we now have certainly everyone engaged through lumpy skin disease and foot and mouth disease and African swine fever. there's an incredible escalation of certainly services and advices. So these sorts of things are being scrutinised very much. So the change and update and review of your plans is actually, we've diligently done it in this region for a number of reasons, but I guess it's making sure that certainly all local governments are now actually making sure that they have these plans in place, because clearly it would seem to be that our world is going to be very much, in terms of risk, we live in interesting times, but certainly there's a lot of work gone into this, and obviously, as you can read, heat waves, dam breaks, all sorts of things are covered in this, and there is an increasingly, I suppose, conscious effort by all emergency sort of strategists that these things have got to be very, very comprehensive and reviewed quite frequently. So appreciate your work. Councillor Rolfe, you have a question?
Yes, Glenn. In the index under biosecurity, there's only equine
influenza.
Equine influenza.
That's correct. At this stage, we are now developing up a livestock biosecurity plan to look at foot and mouth lumpy skin disease and swine fever.
Yep.
That is under development, but has not been developed as yet. Once that's developed, it'll be added to the plan. As per the instructions under the plan, if the plan is not structurally changed, then there is the ability to add additional areas to it without bringing it back to council, and that will happen as we develop this plan up. So I can assure you the documentation has gone out. It's due back to me in the next week internally.
Yep.
And that will be then forwarded on to external stakeholders to complete. There's quite a large gap there.
Yeah, there was a very good presentation by Department of Ag and Fisheries at the Bush Councils a couple of days ago. Very good presentation on the FMD and lumpy, or mostly on FMD, but so yeah, it'll be coming, won't it?
It certainly will be.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rolfe. All right, well, councillors, I know that's a big report and we've had a short discussion, but the recommendation is there that we endorse that local disaster management plan version 7.1. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Rolfe, seconded Councillor Brimblecombe. All in favour? I think Councillor Burns, are you still with us there?
I think it's frozen.
Sorry, we'll just, councillors, just so we make sure that we go back to Councillor Burns. Did you have a comment, Joe, or a question?
No, I was just voting on the motion.
Yeah, no, sorry, Joe, your image had frozen in the boardroom, so I was just going to go back in case you had missed your opportunity for a discussion there. So it's been moved and seconded. Moved by Councillor Rolfe, seconded Councillor Brimblecombe. So those in favour, again, please. Thank you. Councillor Burns has indicated he's voting in favour. Against? Thank you, councillors. That's carried. Thank you very much, Glenn.
Thank you very much, Mayor and councillors.
Councillors, we move to corporate services, and the Acting General Manager Corporate Service, Clint Nicol-Dixon, is right here beside me. So the first one that we're dealing with is 11.2.1, which is the amendments to the adopted 2022-23 fees and charges register. So I'll hand over to you, Clint.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair, this report proposes changes to fees relating to halls, cemeteries and refuse activities. Following this report being deferred from the 13th of July meeting, it also contains additional details to answer the questions that were raised from council on the day. I'll hand over to our Acting Manager of Finance, Helen Kirby, to take us through the report.
Thank you, Clinton, and through the chair, good afternoon, councillors. In accordance with Section 97 of the Local Government Act 2009, council is required to maintain a register of cost recovery fees and charges. Section 97.4 of the Local Government Act requires that a cost recovery fee must not be more than the cost to council of taking the action for which the fee is charged. Section 262(3)(c) of the Local Government Act empowers council to also charge for a service or facility it supplies other than a service or facility which a cost recovery fee may be fixed. Council will impose such a charge where it is prepared to provide a service to a party that can choose to avail itself of that service. Council adopted the 2022-23 Fees and Charges Register on the 23rd of March 2022, which took effect from the 1st of July 22. While a register of fees and charges is adopted each financial year as part of the annual budget development, fees can be introduced or updated during the financial year should circumstances warrant the required amendment. Certain amendments relating to halls, cemeteries and waste activities have been identified since the adoption of the register on the 28th of June and the second amendment, which represented the second amendment. Amendments have been made to hall charges as there is currently inconsistency across the region in relation to the higher fees for halls and community centres. An hourly rate fee provides flexibility with booking arrangements to ensure users are not restricted to half-day and full-day bookings. On this basis, a new hourly fee is proposed for the hire of the Emerald Town Hall, Blackwater Community Centre, Blackwater Activity Centre, Duringa Community Centre, Rubyvale Hall and the Comet Hall. Existing adopted daily and half-daily rates for hall bookings have been retained in the adopted Fees and Charges Register alongside the new hourly rate options proposed in this report. Existing fees to book separate spaces, such as the Emerald Town Hall supper room only, have also been retained in the adopted Fees and Charges Register. There is currently no fee adopted for the exhumation at any of the cemeteries in the region. A new fee is being proposed as price on application. As a contractor would normally be engaged to undertake this work, setting the fee type as price on application would ensure that the council fully recovers the cost of this service. As part of the adoption of the 2023 Fees and Charges Register, refuse tyre fees for both weighbridge and without weighbridge were increased. To correct an administrative error in the register, it is proposed that the unit measurement for this fee is amended from per tyre and each to per tonne. Additionally, the adopted minimum fee at waste sites for loads under 250 kilograms is $27 for loads under 250 kilograms. Currently, the adopted refuse fees for waste facility with weighbridge scrap metal, or scrap steel, car bodies and white goods is $23 per visit. It is proposed that this fee be increased to $27 to align with the minimum charge and that the unit measurement is amended from per visit to per tonne. It is highlighted that these proposed changes to the adopted Fees and Charges Register were previously provided to Council for consideration at the General Council meeting on the 13th of July. At that meeting, a decision was deferred pending response to clarification of questions from Council which have been addressed now in this updated report. It was also noted during the General Council meeting that proposed amendments to the Fees and Charges Register had been inadvertently included on Council's website ahead of the formal Council approval. This was rectified immediately when it arose. That concludes the presentation of the report, and a recommendation is made for the proposed new fees and fee amendments to be adopted.
Right, thank you, Helen. Councillor Rolfe.
This is more about if somebody was looking up, say, car tyres or what have you, online, when you've got your fee description, the heading says tyres, but if you're typing in car tyres, you wouldn't get, car, all you get is cars, or you may not even get car because it's got no tyre behind it. Hate to say this, but when you're searching for things, if you don't put in the correct, it might not pick it up. That's all. Yeah. Sorry, Clinton.
Sorry. So just to be clear there, that's more about the searching for it.
Yeah, just searching for it, Mayor. I'm not talking about the cost of it or anything else, but when I was looking through this and I looked at the what it would look like when it's listed, and if you were looking it up, as in looking for a fee or or whatever. That's all.
So I guess for you, Clint, that might be just the nuances of the search engine and particularly this one. Okay, thanks, Councillor Roll. Councillor Cypher.
Thank you. Thank you, Helen. Just going back to the hourly fees for the halls and the issue that arose at the last council meeting where they were available online prior to endorsement by council, and it was 10 days after they went online till it was discovered. Can we have an assurance that nobody was charged those fees, hourly fees, prior to our endorsement today?
Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor, I can answer that for you. I've had a report from the comms team. That version of the fees and charges was uploaded the day before the council meeting in the afternoon, and then taken down again during the council meeting itself. So there was a previous version on there, but the version that was available during the council meeting was only uploaded about 24 hours before the meeting.
Then my question is, why did that version have the date, the June date on it, if it wasn't the one that was uploaded on the I think it was the 28th of June was the date on that version?
Through you,
How can that be?
Through you, Mr Mayor, that, Councillor, unfortunately, it was the wrong document that was uploaded to the website. So it wasn't the wrong, that wasn't the date that document was uploaded, the 28th of June.
So now I'm confused. So you have put a date on the 28th of June on a document that wasn't going to be uploaded until the 13th of June? After the council endorsement on the 13th of June? What, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of confused.
Councillor, it's my understanding that the document that was available during the meeting, during the last meeting, was uploaded to the website the day before the meeting. So if the date on it said 28th of June, that was not the date that it was uploaded.
So what document was on the website on the 28th of June?
The previous version of the approved version of the fees and charges.
What date was on that document? That previous to the one that had the 28th of June that was on the web? I can't understand how that can be possible. I can't understand how you would have a document dated the 28th because why would anyone have dated a document the 28th of June when it isn't going to be the actual endorsed document until the 13th of July? Why would that have been?
It could easily have been. We can find that out, and I can have our communications manager take you through it.
There would have been a document on the 28th of June. There was a document uploaded which had all the fees on it. Why would you not, the next document that was going to be uploaded on the 13th of July, why didn't they date that document the 13th of July, the day before?
Now, my understanding is that it was a previous version. So while the document was being drafted, that date would have been updated all the way through the drafting process, and the date hadn't been updated because the document wasn't finalised as yet. So the document that was uploaded the day prior to the council meeting, if it had that date of 28th of June, that's just because it was it was just an old version. It shouldn't have been uploaded, it shouldn't have been there, it was an error on behalf of, but I can, the upload history and the dates are all available electronically, so I'll be able to take you through that. So it was just the incorrect version altogether. It shouldn't have been uploaded and it was the incorrect version of the draft document.
Well, I hope the process has been fixed and it won't happen again. Thank you.
And in relation to your question as to whether anybody was charged incorrectly, we can get back to you with that as well. But I don't believe so because it was only put up there the day prior.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, we did confirm that no one had been charged in that period, any of the new fees.
Right. Thank you for answering those questions. Councillor Daniels, you were on and you're now gone. There's a lot of colours going on over in your direction there, Councillor Daniels, today, so I'm just sorry. All right. Other questions on those charges? And is that people now clarified? John did defer that on the day, obviously, just as a bit of a catch-up on those charges, and they've been sort of explained by Helen now. So people happy with those? All right. Well, look, councillors, that recommendation is, and it's obviously got the full list now. So that recommendation there goes 1 to 12, including an exhumation, which I'd be really keen to be here if we do get a request for that. So price on application there is included now. I think that's the first fee and charge I've seen with that, but anyhow, I'm sure there's others. Councillor, someone happy to move those fees and charges? Moved by Councillor Roll, seconded Councillor Brimblecombe. Councillors, all in favour? Councillor Burns has indicated he's voting in favour. Against? Thank you. Councillors, carried. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Clint. All right, councillors, the next agenda item, and stays certainly under Clinton's responsibility, is our monthly financial report, 11.2.2. Thank you, Clinton.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through the chair, I'll hand straight over to Helen again to take us through the monthly finance report.
Thank you, Clinton, and through the chair, good afternoon, councillors, once again. This report presents an overview of Council's interim financial performance and position for the financial year ended 30th of June 2022, measured against the fourth and final adopted budget, which was Budget Review 4. The interim operating surplus is $1.21 million against a budgeted surplus of $1.05 million, which represents a small positive variance of $162,000. An original budget surplus of $2.33 million was adopted on the 30th of June 21. Council conducted 4 budget reviews during the financial year, which formally amended this original adopted budget. The final Budget Review 4 surplus of $1.05 million was adopted on the 15th of June. Interim results indicate that both operating revenue and expenditure have exceeded the Budget Review 4 by minor amounts. As noted, this is only an interim result and is subject to change as further adjustments are reflected during the finalisation of the 2022 financial statements. These statutory financial statements are currently being compiled, and the final reported result will not be determined until the completion and audit of these statements. The external audit commences on the 5th of September, with the audit opinion due to be issued by the Queensland Audit Office in October. A final report against budget will be provided to Council once the audit of the financial statements is completed. The statement of financial position shows cash holdings of almost $93 million as at the end of June. Debtors relating to the combined arrears of rates and charges stands at approximately $12.2 million. Following the issue of the first half 2023 levy in August, the formal debt recovery process, as outlined in the rates and charges collection policy, will be implemented as a matter of priority. Recovery action will initially involve the issue of the first and second reminder notices. If an account is unpaid or a ratepayer has not entered an approved payment arrangement, all debts greater than $1,000 will be referred to Council's debt collection agency. At the 30th of June 22, there were estimated to be about approximately 1,000 rate assessments where debts were actually in excess of the $1,000 threshold. At all stages of the debt recovery process, a ratepayer is able to enter an approved payment arrangement to prevent recovery action escalating. Council does not charge interest when a ratepayer is adhering to an approved payment arrangement. Council has identified 5 business activities where it applies the principles of national competition policy. These are water and sewerage, waste, airport, sale yards and sewerage, these are water and sewerage, waste, airport and sale yards. Water and sewerage are considered significant businesses in accordance with the local government regulation, and full cost pricing has been applied to these businesses. As further end of year financial adjustments will impact the results of these businesses, their final results will be reported to Council following the finalisation and audit of the financial statements. Capital expenditure at the end of June is approximately $55 million. Budget review forecasts total value of the capital program came in just over $61 million. It is expected that total actual expenditure will move closer to budget after the processing of additional end of financial year expenditure accruals. The procurement initiative to buy local, grow local has resulted in a positive outcome with an overall higher spend locally in the region for the financial year. That concludes the presentation of the report, which reflects only the interim results for the financial year. As noted, a final report against budget will be provided to Council once the audit of the financial statements is completed. A recommendation is made that Council adopts the interim monthly finance report for the period ended the 30th of June 22. I'm happy to take questions on any of the information presented.
Thank you, Helen, again. And councillors, any questions? I notice Helen repeated the word interim quite a number of times, so I guess there is always certainly an opportunity of there being a change or two. Helen, a question I did want to ask you in terms of the national competition policy, is that the only driver where we keep sort of, I guess you'd say, those units separately so that we can actually make sure that the, effectively we are calculating the right return, I guess you'd say, on those business units or technically business units?
That's right. Just, sorry, through the Chair, Council has identified those businesses as business activities under national competition policy, even though only water and sewage meet the connection thresholds to apply full cost pricing. We still adopt certain principles relating to national competition policy for the other activities.
Yeah. Councillor Daniels.
Thank you, Mayor. You did comment around the procurement initiative by local, grow local, and I think like 46% for the total spend, that would be the highest. Well, certainly in the 6 years that I've been a councillor, I think it's the highest we've ever achieved. So I just want to highlight it. It's a really good outcome.
Thank you
for the initiative.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. All right. It is very comprehensive again, Helen. I appreciate that. It is noteworthy that I guess, and whilst you are certainly encouraging us to adopt them as interim figures, certainly that it is a good result in terms of, certainly there can be factors that actually cause that to vary quite substantively. But another report that actually came, and I'm not seeking to alarm you, but certainly the Assistant Minister for Local Government, Nikki Boyd, was actually at Barcaldine at the Bush Council's conference, and her good news, I suppose, in her address to the delegates was that the Queensland Grants Commission had indicated that the indexing was coming through, and to use her words, and she actually corralled these pretty tightly, was that that some councils, and obviously as where we are nationally, obviously, sorry, not nationally, definitely going to have a reduction in our grants component. Obviously, there was going to be an adjustment, an indexed adjustment to those. And there was reference to, and this is the one that pricked my ear up, was based on the previous calculation rather than the estimation on this
new methodology.
On the new methodology. Okay. So I was a little bit, thank you, Councillor Rolfe. So all I'm saying is a little heads up there. She obviously got that message hot off the press. So I think it was deliberately sort of, I guess you'd say, released to that group of people. But I think the detail will be interesting coming up. So I understand what you mean by interim, if there's some sort of potential adjustment that might just come up. So watch that space.
Thank you.
All right, councillors, well, the recommendation is there. Well, 11.2.2, apologies, councillor, with my glasses here. I'm actually just trying to work with this, my protection here. Councillor, someone happy to move that, please, that monthly financial report that we received that? Moved by Councillor Brimblecombe. Second, Councillor Burns, from the right-hand side. So, councillors, that's been moved and seconded. All in favour? Councillor Burns has indicated he's voting in favour. Against? Thank you, councillors, and Marnie noting that Councillor Rolfe had left the room prior to the vote. Thank you for that. All right, thank you. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Clinton. Councillors, we move along to 11.3, which is customer and commercial services. And that also has an acting General Manager, Solomon Coppers, located to my right here. That first agenda item, and it relates to the government agency exemption. And I'll let Solomon introduce that, thank you, to his team.
Through the Chair, good afternoon, councillors and colleagues. The item before you this afternoon seeks council approval to apply an exception available under the Local Government Regulations 2012 to the Air Service Australia lease at Emerald Airport. The item title refers to a government agency exception, Whilst both exceptions apply to the situation, the report is applying the lease extension exception in this instance. The exception will allow the extension of the current lease without first undertaking a tender. So with us this afternoon, we have got Senior Property Officer Melissa Elwood to discuss the item further.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mr Mayor and Councillors. This report is in relation to an application for a lease extension at the Emerald Airport. The grant of a lease is essentially the disposal of a non-valuable current asset, and therefore we must invite tenders unless an exception applies. The exceptions under section 236 of the regulation include where the disposal is for the purpose of renewing the lease to the existing tenant, but council will need to resolve to apply this exception. The application has been received from Air Services Australia, which is an incorporated federal government organisation responsible for ensuring appropriate infrastructure is in place for the safety of the aviation community. The leased land is located to the left of the airport driveway and houses a non-directional beacon and a satellite ground station. The non-directional beacon provides a backup navigational network, and the satellite ground station assists with the separation of aircraft in and around the airport. Both pieces of equipment are critical to aviation safety and accordingly provides a benefit to the community. If the lease doesn't continue, the operation of the airport may be impacted. The recommendation today is to approve the exception under section 236 of the local government regulations to progress a lease extension with the proponent and delegate to the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate terms and conditions of the agreement. If all requirements are met, then to extend the lease agreement with Air Services Australia. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Melissa, and I'm sure if Solomon hasn't reinforced this, in terms of the discussion of the airport master plan and certainly the stages, I guess, of that, there's always been an inquiry at different times from councillors about the NDB location in that area and its relevance. That is actually explained in the body of the report. But I guess in terms of also the, whilst there's not an immediate need, I think we can all agree that isn't necessarily there. The reality is that the lease has been tailored to at least allow future councils the opportunity of actually reconsidering the usage of that site, and clearly for the change in technology where there's not such a reliance, particularly on that site. I think that's correct. Yep. Thank you. Right, councillors, any other questions on that one? So that you can see on that map, it's that land that obviously sits in that on the left-hand side as we certainly drive in, and has that the old wired-up tower that sits smack in the middle of it, and a pad, isn't it, that actually sits underneath it, and I'd hate to describe that, but so that's the reason for the lease. So there's an exemption here sought. That's not usual, but I guess the parameters have been indicated to you there. So is someone happy with that recommendation to move it? Moved by Councillor Brimblecombe. Seconded, Councillor Curtis. And it's in two parts there that we approve that exception under 236(1)(c)(7), and the second part is that delegation, obviously, to the CEO. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favour? Councillor Burns has indicated he's voted in favour. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Solomon. And staying with Solomon's responsibilities, the 11.3.2 agenda item is the community organisation exception again for the Peak Downs Pony Club. So I'll let you introduce this, Solomon.
Through the Chair, Councillors, our next item seeks Council approval to apply the community organisation exception in this instance, available under the local government regulations. This will allow the Central Highlands Regional Council to enter into a 12-month licence with the Peak Downs Pony Club for adjustment purposes without first undertaking a tender. With us this afternoon, we've got Property Officer Rhiannon Maguire to discuss the item further.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr Mayor and Councillors. This report is in relation to a community organisation exception for a licence with the Peak Downs Pony Club. The club operates out of Bridgman Park at Capella and utilises some land.
Sorry, Rhiannon, can you click your microphone on, please? Yep, sorry.
Sorry.
Right. Yep.
The club operates out of Bridgman Park at Capella and utilises some land via a trustee lease from council. also within Capella for adjustment purposes. However, the club has requested additional land for members to adjust their horses. The additional land is shown on the map within the report and is about 28 hectares. One parcel adjoins the leased area and the other parcel is just north of Capella Creek. The licence provides that the licensee is responsible for ensuring water and fencing is adequate for the animals, and if necessary, council will provide the relevant consents. If approved, the licence will be for 12 months and would be a peppercorn licence. Licences that are under 1 year in term and less than $10,000 are generally not considered a valuable non-current asset and therefore do not need to go through the tender process as detailed within the local government regulation. As there is an exception that does apply and there is a community benefit to allowing the club to adjust the land as part of their operations, the resolution to apply the exception provides for transparent decision making. And as detailed within the report, the sound contracting principles within the Local Government Act have been considered. The recommendation is to approve the exception under section 236 of the Local Government Regulation and enter into a licence for 12 months with the club and delegate to the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate terms and conditions and if all requirements are met, to enter into a licence. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just for completeness, Rhiannon, Councillor Rolfe was discussing this earlier on the basis she might have to leave, so she had a couple of questions. There was in relation to the actual hectares involved in each site and access to water. What was the access to water?
So, through the chair, the area of land is around 28 hectares, and it is actually the occupant's responsibility to manage the water. But I understand that particular land does have access to water. There is a dam or some kind of water facility, but it is their responsibility to manage that.
So I guess to satisfy that inquiry is that it would be the lessee's responsibility, obviously, to avail themselves of water.
Yes, Pony Club will need to deal with that. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Billicombe.
Just a query on overgrazing, that's the leasee's responsibility?
Yes, through the chair, it will be the leasee's responsibility, but we will assess as necessary as well.
And control of weeds, that's also the leasee's?
That will be their responsibility, yes.
Thank you.
So I get, sorry. Charlie, you'll have to turn your microphone on.
Sorry, my
Councillor
apologies.
Cypher. Thank you, Gus. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't actually hear the first part of Charlie's question, so if I'm asking the same one again, I'm sorry. Is there a limit on, because of that size, is there a limit on how many horses can be run there?
That there will be a limit, yes.
Is that bylaw? There's a core bylaw?
So the local laws don't apply to this particular area, but we will assess the carrying capacity of the area and probably will limit the number of horses on there. So we haven't done that as yet, just because.
So how come the local law doesn't apply to that when it applies to other places?
It's just outside the designated area, the mapping in the local laws.
Oh, right. That's weird. I'm sorry.
No, it's a good point, Councillor. So I thought the same thing, and then I realised it was just outside the boundaries that you'd brought, or the planners had brought to us just the other day about the designated areas. So I understand that now, yeah.
No, I'm just sort of thinking the industrial area there, the town there, and
Yep.
that's in the middle.
That's right,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
All right. Other questions, councillors? But it'll be good to have that, I guess you'd say, that process sorted out, and so there's some continuity there. Yep. All right, so councillor, the recommendation is there that we approve the community organisation exemption under that same 236 section, and obviously delegation again to, oh, hang on. Am I doing that right? Yep. That's correct. There's almost a cut and paste session going on here. So obviously it's an exemption being sought, and obviously the delegation generally follows that on the basis of that. So someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Curtis, seconded Councillor Cypher. Councillors, it's been moved and seconded. All in favour? Councillor Burns has indicated he's voting in favour. Against? Thank you, councillors. Carried. Thank you, Rhiannon. That's the Pony Club, and we stay in the metropolis of Capella, and another exemption being sought here for the Capella State High School. So, Solomon, if you lead us again.
Through the councillor, through the chair, councillors, our next item seeks council approval to apply the government agency exception available under the local government regulations. This will allow council to enter into a 12-month licence with Capella High School in order to undertake adjustment. The opportunity will have a number of benefits, as the Coordinator Property Services, Andrea Hewitt, will discuss. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr Mayor and councillors. So very similar to the previous reports, this is applying an exception. This time it's a government agency exception under the local government regulations to enter into a licence with the Capella State High School. The Capella State High School is seeking a licence to adjust stock on the adjoining land next to the Capella State High School. This lot is approximately 8 hectares, and they are looking to put approximately 2 horses on that. This is to augment their current agricultural program within their state school program, so it is a benefit to the local community to allow this adjustment to occur. Similar to the Peak Downs Pony Club, the applicant will be responsible for managing the fencing and the water and any weeds and everything that's on that particular land, and that particular land is obviously large enough for 2 horses to graze on that. This land is within the designated urban area, so there will be a responsibility on the Capella State High School to apply for a livestock permit through rangers, and that's allowed for in the licence agreement as well. This again is for 12 months, and that aligns with the planning scheme as well. I'm happy to take any questions in relation to that.
Yeah, so if I can just be the delegate again, Councillor Rolfe did ask about hectarage and access to water again, just to be clear.
Yep, so the area of land is 8 hectares, yep, and it is the responsibility of the person adjusting the land to ensure that there's adequate water within that land for that. But we will provide the necessary consents if they require, access through council services, I guess.
Right, thank you.
Meters or whatever.
Yeah, Councillor Daniels.
Thank you. I feel like no one can hear me. I was speaking to the principal, Capella State High School principal today, and she was saying how we think she's going to have increased numbers and we'll be able to have ag science again as one of their subjects, which is really great. Just a question, I guess, with this, and obviously that's the demand from her student cohort for that kind of study area. Do you see any, and I know you're not Ranger Services, but do you see any issue being in the urban area, the approval being given for horses to be adjusted on this lot of land?
Yeah, through the chair, there is 3 houses that they will need to get consent from before that application. It'll depend, I think they're teacher houses. Yeah. So maybe that won't be an issue, but that would probably be the only issue there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Daniels. Councillor Curtis.
Andrea, is there anything in the regulation and everything about the water? I know they've got to provide water, but being a fairly high traffic area and everything, is there anything to ensure that it doesn't detract from the visual amenity of the area, having bathtubs full of water or, other, there's nothing to...
I don't believe there's anything like that. So they will be temporary of nature, and I think, it depends on where they put that as well. I foresee them being towards the end of the...
Yeah, so do I, but just, yeah.
Rather than at the front where there is actual residential frontage. Mm-hmm. But we can apply something in the terms and conditions of the adjustment to address any of that kind of problem as well.
No worries, thank you.
Yeah, that would seem sensible given that it's in the designated town area and there is an amenity issue there.
And it'll be assessed by rangers, the water and so forth as well, so...
You're right. So once again, councillors, it is if you're seeking that exemption there and approving that, well, then the delegation with the CEO and then officers to obviously make sure those conditions are right is provided in that recommendation. All right. No more questions. Councillor, someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Cypher, seconded by Councillor Curtis. Councillors have been moved and seconded. All in favour? Councillor Burns has voted. He's indicated he's voting in favour. Against? Thank you, councillors. Carried. Thank you very much, Andrea. Councillors, we move along now to the Office of the CEO, and this is about the call for motions for our 2020 the Local Government Association of Queensland Annual Conference. So I'll hand over to you, CEO. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the annual conference of the Local Government Association of Queensland is coming up in October, and as happens each year, there's a call for motions from all member councils, and we have gone through a process as we do each year with the officers, recommending to councillors and providing the opportunity to councillors also to recommend motions to be put up to the annual conference. There's a process that happens prior to us formally putting the motions to council, as we're doing today, where we do engage and get some feedback about the draft motions from the Local Government Association of Queensland representatives, and that's mostly just about whether the form of words and so on would lend themselves to being accepted as motions, so that we don't waste our time and their time putting form of words up that they can't approve. So that process has happened. So there are 13 motions, one additional motion from when councillors will have last considered these suggestions, and that came about as a result of a discussion that we had recently with the Local Government Association of Queensland representatives when they visited and met with councillors. So that's motion 13 has been added to the list, which councillors have been advised about. So I'll hand over to Millie, and you can take us, our Principal Projects Advisor, can take us through the recommendations in this report. And in particular, I understand that the Local Government Association of Queensland feedback was for a change of form of words for that final motion 13. So if you could take us through that, Millie, that would be great.
Thank you, CEO. And through the Chair, the 126th LGIQ Annual Conference will be held between the 17th and the 19th of October in Cairns. As councillors are aware, the annual conference provides councillors within Queensland an opportunity to put forward advocacy priorities which are of statewide relevance. Motions are due to be submitted by the 10th of August. Officers in ELT, as the CEO has mentioned, have prepared 13 motions for the consideration of councillors today, which have been attached to the report. Those motions span a breadth of issues and include grant funding concerns, issues facing the water and sewerage space, funding and governance arrangements for the State Emergency Service, and economic and community transition planning in the wake of changing supply and demand for fossil fuels. We will take the motions attached to the report as read, and before inviting questions, I will briefly speak to feedback received from the LGAQ in relation to motion 13, which councillors will note bears the title, The Need for an Economic Transition Authority. Since the issue of the agenda, LGAQ has provided additional feedback that LGAQ do not consider that motion 13 in its current form will pass through the LGAQ Motion Review Committee vetting process because it is Bowen Basin rather than Queensland based, and therefore does not have statewide relevance, which is a mandatory requirement for LGAQ motions. The LGIQ have suggested amended wording, and further nuance has also been added to the motion after additional consultation with Isaac Regional Council. In light of the LGAQ feedback and peer engagement, officers therefore recommend amended wording to motion 13 to now read as follows. The LGAQ calls on the state and federal governments to establish an economic and community transition authority in consultation with local governments to 1, respond to changing supply and demand for fossil fuel, and 2, develop regional plans and coordinate a sustainable transition, including for the Central Queensland Bowen Basin. If accepted by councillors, this amended wording would need to be updated in the resolution wording. I'll now hand over to councillors for questions.
Okay. And can I just to probably capture all of that, if you don't mind, CEO and Millie, we were aware that Isaac Regional Council were submitting one similarly. I guess I think, I've got to get this in the right order. So when Lgiq came and suggested to us the other day, I suppose, the support or the initiation of this type of motion, they were en route to Moranbah, to Isaac Regional Councils, and ironically, I was pretty much aware that they had been discussing, similarly, the future of certainly their local government area in respect of this. Millie has actually had a conversation with Kelly Beebe, as have I, just in relation to their motion. And I suppose in a conversation, it's, in an appropriate collaboration and feedback, it's good to share if we can. If there's obviously a collective view on the Bowen Basin particularly, that would be useful. Theirs is a little different, but I think in a discussion we had here, in that I think a number of motions potentially from our region would serve the purpose of making the conversation, albeit they be successful, that an authority to be established would be an outcome we would all like. So there's a broad-based agreement there. The content and the stakeholder engagement and subsequent sort of structure of that would be something that could be, I suppose, the grist for a lot of good deliberation and stakeholder engagement later on. So in a way, rather than sort of furiously make sure that we're in agreement and actually change all the words around, I would be certainly happy to have a number of motions. They might get grouped, I don't know. I'm not preempting the adjudicator in terms of taking the motions, but if that was the case, it would only, I think, add to the conversation that certainly the northern and the southern part of the Bowen Basin are obviously starting to actually work along the same line. So I guess that was just some additional information I wanted to add. I spoke to Kelly today just in terms of that, and she's very, very supportive of that. So I guess whichever way council decides and determines whether we get the opportunity of a little more, she actually even suggested that perhaps we might get together as councils, and actually so that on the day at Lgiq in Cairns we're all on the same page and we've got pretty much a good argument in place. So I think that's good background to know as well. So go, Councillor Seibert.
No, it was just a comment really for that one, that number 13. I just want to say thank you for the way, I actually liked the way you rewrote that, and I thought it was very inclusive, and that I thought it was good. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Seibert. So, councillors, happy with that? I guess in Millie's work that she's been sharing with the CEO and certainly for a little bit of input from me, it's been very careful about our approach to this, because I think we're making, I'm not going to say baby steps, but I think we're very mindful and conscious of the political, I suppose you'd say, forum out there, and making sure that it's as collaborative as we can possibly make it. And I think the very first instance from a local government perspective, we start off on at least there's some collective thinking together. So hopefully we can capture that. So if people are happy with that. So there's wording, there's a little bit of change wording, isn't there, Millie? That's one we've got here. So.
Through the chair, yes. I believe that Marnie's reflected the change of wording on the screen there.
That's under, right. Thank you.
Under motion 13.
I'm just making sure that Councillor Seifert's happy with that wording there. That's the wording. Thank you. No, thank you, Go. No, you're right. No, I'm just clear in my mind that I'm actually talking about the right thing. So, councillors, happy with that? Sorry, Millie, go on. Yeah.
No, that's all. Thanks, Mayor.
All right. Okay. So, councillors, that is a number of motions. So, for those attending the conference, we will have to speak and argue and prosecute each of these. So the resolution that we're seeking today, certainly so that we can keep working, when were they going to be, what's the closing date?
Motions need to be submitted by the 10th of August.
Yeah, okay.
They'll also, Chair, they'll be sent to the CQ ROC by flying minute prior.
Okay. So, Millie, just so I'm really, really clear, is there likely to be any sort of, I guess you'd say, opportunity for, I suppose, adjustment between when we lodge them and perhaps when we get to the LGIQ? Would there be?
So the motions themselves will pass through the LGAQ Motion Review Committee. During that process, the Motion Review Committee will assess motions for I guess, similarities, and where there are similar motions proposed by different councils, the Motion Review Committee will work with those councils to amalgamate the motion where possible and to ensure that the amended wording reflects the intent of each council.
Yep, okay. Just so councillors understand the latitude that's still allowed before we, we're broadly adopting these, I suggest, because there may be a slight tweak that perhaps we'll get them there. Yep.
Yes, Mr Mayor.
All right. Councillors, the recommendation is there that we endorse the following motions, and they're obviously the ones that are numbered there. So someone happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Daniel, second by Councillor Brimblecombe. All in favour? Councillor Burns has indicated he's voting in favour. Against? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Millie. Thank you, CEO. So the challenge will be out there then for other local government associations, local government areas in Queensland to beat the record of 13 motions for the conference. I'm sure former CEO Scott Mason will be watching gleefully. Councillors, moving along to our information reports, and this comes under Acting General Manager Lisa Donlan. This is the record of proceedings of our Sport and Active Recreation Advisory Group, SARAG, as it's affectionately known. 13.1.1, I'll hand over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The report presents the record of proceedings for the Sport and Active Recreation Advisory Group. I'll hand immediately over to Acting Manager Parks and Recreation, Emma Tierney, to present the report.
Thank you, Acting General Manager Donlan. Through the Chair, good afternoon all. This information report presents a record of proceedings for the Sport and Active Recreation Advisory Group meeting on the 30th of March 2022. The Sport and Active Recreation Advisory Group, also known as SRAG, includes representation from councillors, senior staff and community members. The advisory group gives residents and representatives from the community, as well as sporting clubs and industry experts, the opportunity to provide advice and feedback to council. The group provides guidance and recommendations on matters relevant to the strategic direction of sport and recreation in the Central Highlands area. As required under the group's terms of reference, the record of proceeding have been provided to Central Highlands Regional Council for adoption. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Councillor Daniels.
Thank you. Just page 252 of 294, you've got the heading Central Highlands Mountain Bike Club, but then there's no words underneath that.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels, through the Chair. The Central Highlands Mountain Bike Club, we did have a brief discussion on that, but at the time we didn't have any further information to provide the group. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Sophie, nothing to add to that? Oh, sorry, you're asking a question here, so over to you.
Sorry. Actually, I hope this is not too operational to ask, but hasn't there been another meeting since this one? Is it just that we're a little bit behind in getting our minutes before council, or?
Thank you, Councillor Seifer. The minutes from the most recent meeting that we had at the end of June will not come to council until we have our next advisory group meeting and we confirm that they are the correct minutes.
Oh, righto. Thank you. Well, thank you.
So, Councillor Sophie, you are right. There has been another meeting since then. So, yep. Yeah. Beautiful. All right. All right, councillors happy with those? Well, look, the recommendation is there that we obviously receive those record of proceedings. Someone happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Seifer, second by Councillor Burns. Councillors, it's been moved and seconded. All in favour? Councillor Burns has indicated he's voting in favour. Against? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Emma. Councillors, item 13.5.1 is the Central Highlands Development Corporation Service Level Agreement. I guess if we didn't have to formally introduce Peter, and he's definitely worth introducing formally, our Interim Chief Executive Officer, Peter Dowling, is here. Can I acknowledge Peter and certainly your team for their excellent discharge of the Farm to Fine Dining event again this year, and certainly some very, very positive feedback, obviously, that's been coming through on all the socials. So congratulations. I know a lot of work goes into that, so I know that's not necessarily all of what you're talking about today, but I think when you push that button on the right-hand side of that machine there and actually, speaking of that, oh, you can sit wherever you like, Peter. Right-hand side of that, push the button and you'll be away. So welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Council. Here to present the service level agreement update for the fourth quarter of financial year 21-22. There's an extensive report behind this presentation, so more than happy to take questions regarding that. Just tried to capture some of the changes or new actions that may have come through that report. So importantly, we did celebrate 25 years of service to the region in the last quarter, which was an important milestone for CHDC and for the region. In addition, our board does try to go out into various locations in the region to hold their meetings, and whilst they're there, they do engage with the local community. So the meetings over this quarter were for, I think they were Capella and the Gem Fields, as well as Emerald. And both in Rubyvale and Capella, there were the Chair's Lunch that was also attended by local businesses. Importantly, in the quarter, we did fill the vacancy of our business facilitator. So Ashley Kavanagh has come on board in that time frame, and we're now 3 months in with Ashley, and she's delivering great outcomes as per the detailed report. As you'd be aware, Council, we've got a revised sort of membership fee that Council is paying for CHDC for the coming this financial year, and we've been in heavy budget bill discussions internally to revise our budget to meet that, as well as revise our operational plan to meet that. In discussion with the Visitor Economy Coordinator, Paul Thompson, the figures coming through our visitor information centres are relatively strong. Important to note that there have been some impacts, obviously through weather, in particular, has punctuated the full flow of visitors through our region. The other interesting impact was the federal election. That seemed to have some sort of impact in terms of visitation numbers. In the last quarter, we also had some great engagement through our visitor economy. We had Tourism Australia in the region doing some filming, which was a credit to the team to have them here and to make sure that we got the greatest value from the opportunity. We also had the Taste of Australia in region in that quarter as well, and their episode for the Central Highlands aired in late June. We have received the feedback from the Central Highlands Visitor Business Survey. We had 278 respondents. Interestingly, a lot of our businesses were reporting negative impacts from the COVID restrictions over the past 12 months, and that labour shortages and economic activity continue to be the top constraints to business growth. We've got a fact sheet that's coming out with the detail around that particular survey, and we will do some media with regards to that as well. We do track our various data in terms of our platforms. So the two key platforms that we have are obviously the Central Queensland Highlands and What's On. And important to note, there was a 14% increase in the views compared to Q3 with the Central Queensland Highlands website. And that includes the Visitor Information Centre appearance on Google Maps. Did remarkably well, attracting 46,500 views compared to 27,800 views in Q3. The real surprise standout for the last month was actually the What's On platform. So they talk about unique users increased by 159% from Q3, and event views increased by 117% from Q3. Important to note that CHDC personnel populate the What's On platform with all the events. We are hoping to get more of a self-help model going, but that's proving to be quite difficult. We will review that at the end of the tourism season to determine the value of that site and progressing or not going forward. There's every likelihood we will. It's just a matter of whether we have the resourcing to continue to do the input side of that equation, as opposed to community having that input, which is not occurring at the moment. Obviously, our signature event, Farm to Fine Dining, occurred last week in Brisbane. This was really to reflect the host of activity that takes place in the preparation for that event every year. We can certainly in the next quarter give an update on the outcomes of that event, but certainly, as the Mayor indicated, we've had very positive feedback and good media regarding that event. One of the key roles we do play in the region and beyond is to participate in the development of strategies and plans. Of note in the last quarter was the release of the State Resources Industry Development Plan and the State Infrastructure Strategy. Important to note that there is a Central Queensland Infrastructure Strategy. It's due for release in the second quarter of this financial year, so the back end of this calendar year, which again, we've played a part in putting our thoughts forward in its construction, so we look forward to seeing what that delivers. From an engagement perspective, we had the new CEO from Queensland Farmers Federation in the region, and we engaged with Joe Shepherd, integrated with visits to some of our key members, so Nigel Burnett, obviously Chair of Cotton Australia, and Aaron Kiley there, who's the Deputy Vice President of the Queensland Farmers Federation, but also some other great engagements with Alicia Dunbar and the CQ Smart Cropping Centre. We look forward to doing more work with organisations like the QFF. In fact, we are engaged as a participant, more of a delegate really, to view their ag workforce virtual conference next week. So we'll be very keen to see what sort of actions and strategies come from that particular event. We also took the opportunity when Agro was on to catch up with Robert Harvey, and Rob is actually the Executive Manager for Health and Agriculture, but has a very strong linkage to the Australian ag tech scene, and it's really important that he got a good understanding of where our region is looking to go in terms of ag tech and mine tech for that matter, but particularly ag tech. So there was good discussion held out at Agro with Rob. As many would know, the CQ Land Port's an incredibly important logistical facility for our region, and its development continues. We were pleased to be out at the launch of Seaway and their facility. We continue to engage with Jamie Kennedy and his team, even right down to recruitment. We've been talking about how we support their recruitment going forward, just in terms of our collateral that we can offer in their recruiting processes. I believe that'll be up and running in September, all being well. Just wanted to share a key update here regarding some collateral development we're undertaking. You may recall, Council, that we previously had a development register. We found it incredibly difficult to get particularly the mining data from the Department of Resources over the last 2 years. We've gone a different way after some engagement with local business, just to get their sense of what's important. And what's important to them is having a piece of collateral that offers confidence in the marketplace. So we've gone a major projects approach and then industry information sheets. So we do have the final products ready next week, and we'll go out to market and sort of put some media around that so that we can share that with our constituents, but also importantly that external market that's looking at our region. The first industry information sheet is the mining industry, and then we'll obviously look at our agricultural industry, and then we're looking at hybrid models of health and education and tourism going forward. That's just a celebratory thank you from the team and the celebrations of the 25-year anniversary. Also for Council's understanding, we do, with the new operational plan, we'll be working with CEO Sharon Houlihan in terms of that becoming the reporting template going forward for these quarterly updates. So try to align our operational plan in that reporting timeframe with also the Council's operational plan as well, and those reporting timeframes. So there's more consistency there. But what you will not get is the detailed 17-page report that we've provided this time and every quarter for the last year, I suppose. So we're just going to try and strike the balance there as to the level of information that meets the need of Council. And that's the report recommended to the Council.
All right, thanks, Peter. Councillors, as Peter just said, there's 17 pages there of obviously key updates. Is there any questions or queries?
Yes.
Yeah, go, Councillor.
Well, I'm disappointed that I'm not getting the 17 pages because that's the best report and the most informative report I've had from CHDC in nearly 10 years. So I'm disappointed that's not always going to be like this, Peter, because this is the best. I actually know what's happening over there from those 17 pages. So my comment was going to be thank you very much, but now I feel that it has been taken away. So I'm not sure who instructed that it shouldn't be the 17 pages, but I would like to see the 17 pages because not all of us get the opportunity to know what's happening to the detail that we've heard here today. So thank you.
I can probably help with that, Peter. So really in terms of combining, in terms of the presentation, the report is there, but in terms of how it's presented at Council with the pictures and so on, that's sort of the new way, and the previous CEO did that once as well. And in terms of aligning better with Council's operational plan reporting, that's a timing issue, so that the CHDC's report from the CHDC's CEO will be presented in the whichever format that the CHDC and councillors prefer. That it can be this long if that's what councillors prefer, because that document is prepared anyway. But in terms of timing, it'll be on the same day as the operational plan report, the quarterly report that council does. And the reason for that is that to not have double handling for CHDC, because there are a number of items of CHDC actions that are in the council operational plan due to come before council soon, and so that CHDC didn't have to prepare one report for the council operational plan quarterly report and another report for the CHD on different dates. We are seeking to align our reporting just to prevent duplication. But I agree with the thoroughness of the report. Not everybody wants to read as many, but in particular the key summary that the CEO has presented on the first page, I think is a very useful summary, and in fact what you've covered in pictures in the verbal presentation as well. So thank you very much. I echo Councillor Cypher's being impressed with that.
Yeah, listen, and we're very open to the opportunity to report. We want to make sure that you're feeling confident in your membership in our organisation at the end of the day. So happy to meet that need. It's just a lot of work that we want to make sure we get right in the timeframes with Council's ops plan presentation as well. So happy to take that on board.
So, Councillor, sorry, it might not be 17 pages, but will certainly be a comprehensive report, and that's what I guess we're really trying to find out, if that's the level of...
That's the level I want.
Yep. And I guess if we can do that, it won't be about necessarily knowing everything that goes on over there. You've got plenty of people that are there to do that, but I guess it's making sure that the information you want over here is actually what we contain in these sort of service level agreements. So that's obviously the key takeout. So go, Councillor Bimbleham.
Yeah, thanks for the report, Peter. I noticed under Ashley Kavanagh's area, the grant guru. Have you got any further comments on that? Because it looks like a fantastic opportunity for both for CHDC, but the community and the business community as well to access grants.
Yeah, so it has been launched. It's on our website. It's called Grant Finder, is the sort of term we use. Grant Guru is the organisation behind the product. So it's only relatively new. Our business facilitator will be out and about supporting our business and community groups to understand what the product offers. So we don't tend to write grants for business or community groups, but we do like to give guidance and direction as to the opportunities that are coming through on a regular basis. We can pull reports from that product, which is important to us, so that one of our deliverables to Council, to their operational plan, is this product. And we've set ourselves a target of 100 registrations in 12 months, which is quite a feat if we can get there, but we're being fairly optimistic. And one of the things we did do with this product is we opened it up so it was broader than just for businesses. So there is a component there that's for community as well, so it's open to all. And we know in our region that a lot of people in business are obviously in our community groups as well, so the interaction is really important for us. But we will monitor that over time, Councillor, as well, to see its value. And we've had one session with the Grant Guru team just to give us a sense as a team as to how it operates, and hopefully Ashley can deliver that across our business community as well.
Thanks, Peter.
Any other questions? And thank you, Peter. There's a lot of work, obviously, in preparing that. Can I just add, probably additionally, just I guess only because you're delivering your quarterly update. We had a couple of conversations at Bush Councils with Maranoa councillors that were there, just in terms of the new RTO proposal. They knew nothing about it. So I guess I just wanted to probably share that with you while we're here. So I asked you obviously to share that information with the councillors that we saw there, and certainly there was no harm in doing that. The information had been provided to us, and certainly...
Yeah, and I think that the challenge there is that obviously Council and CHDC are very keen to better understand what the proposal actually is, and the detail behind it. As I said in our meeting with TEQ, they need to understand it's more than just about the RTOs. CHDC acts as an LTO, a local tourism organisation for Council, and therefore there may or may not be implications relative to the LTO as well. So we're very keen to engage with TEQ and the relevant RTOs that are being proposed as alternates, so that we can understand the full breadth of what's on offer.
Oh, sorry, go, Sophie, yeah.
Just a question in regards to the, I'll take this off, in regards to the RTO. this is the question. Is CHRC the member, or is CHDC the member? Because I was always under the belief that the actual membership, which I know, like, the money comes from council, but the actual member is the local government, and that's what I thought.
Correct. So the decision-making power here is with the local government as to whether they want to continue with the existing RTO or make a change. It's just by implication that CHDC is involved in that because of the investment in tourism and the work that we do for council. But yes, council is the member.
So there's the RTO, and what do you?
LTO, so local.
Local.
Local tourism organisation.
I couldn't work out what the L was. Local. So when the next meeting with the I hate acronyms, but the Queensland Tourism
and Events Queensland.
Queensland.
Yep.
Can all of council be invited to that meeting, please? Because I think that's important, that council is involved in understanding that, not just a selected few, but the whole of council, because that will be the decision-making body. I know I was at the last one, but all of council needs to be involved. Thank you.
I think the proposal for the RTO, if they go and substantiate what they want to do, and that's the question that I guess the further work they need to do. They were leaving here after that meeting to go to Banana and then
Rocky
and then Rockhampton. So I guess in the event that they do have something to, practically, and I say this guardedly, that they don't really have a proposal to offer anyone yet because it hasn't been agreed to all the parties. So, but I guess you're right, Councillor Cypher, is that when they have a proposition to put to council, it will come to council, definitely. So all councillors are going to be participating in that proposition. So
all councillors need to be on the whole, not just anything.
Well, we don't dictate that sometimes. It's just they engage with, I guess, those stakeholders they need to, and then if they develop it up, then they'll bring it to us. So it will be a decision for all of council, so there'll be no question of that. So, but it's still very much, and clearly from that feedback from Maranoa, it looks like it's still quite, very, very in its infancy, or it hasn't substantiated itself very much just yet, because clearly the magnitude of what they propose is quite a large area, and if there was in some way, shape or form, although they advise that they don't have to have it all being conjointly sort of and contiguous, it certainly would be problematic. So the last thing our region wants is, and I know you said this before, Councillor Cypher, they just want to see the job get done. They don't really care what the name and who it is and whatever it is. Sometimes it's, but I guess we can't have a dud. We've got to have a pretty good process and a proposition to be sort of contemplating. So, and as you said, the implication then for CHDC is that you are the LTO. And the proposal that in what shape and form they've provided so far is, a very, very large area with a couple of offices in it, and it's interesting to see how they would manage that or administer that. So,
yeah. So my understanding is the next conversation will include at least the proposed RTO that might take over a new inland sort of region, which is Peter Homan, and I did raise in the last sort of meeting with TEQ and council that there also needs to be an understanding of culture and leadership within those RTOs that we deal with, so that we understand the type of organisation we want to continue to work with or change up with, and noting that, leaders and CEOs that are driving a lot of these proposals and changes may or may not be there going forward over time. So just need to take that in the calibration of the opportunity ahead.
and I think if I might, with your indulgence, Peter, I guess we need to note that I thought people would have seen the agribusiness position advertised as well, which is an important, a very important part of certainly the continuum, I guess, of the engagement we have certainly in a technology space, and certainly with, arguably the second largest industry in our region.
Yeah, so in the next quarter report, you'll probably find some updates with regards to recruitment on that particular role and where we're going, so that we can continue to play a very pivotal role in the coordination and networking and communication across our ag sector and how it intersects with our other sectors as well.
All right, thanks, Peter. Any more questions for Peter? All good. Thank you, Peter, and thank you for the feedback, councillors, I guess, in terms of how we structure this new service level agreement and the way it comes. So, councillors, the recommendation is that we note the quarterly update for the period April 2022 to June 2022. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Cypress, seconded by Councillor Brimblecombe. All in favour? Councillor Burns is indicating he's voting in favour. Against? Thank you. Carried. Thank you, Councillor Rolfe. You've joined us just in time to get to general business. I don't believe there's any later agenda items, Marnie, that we're aware of? Nope. So general business, councillors. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
All good? Excellent. And can I just reiterate, thank you very much, councillors, for your flexibility in terms of the date and the time of this meeting today. It's been helpful. I guess we need to get our business done, and we certainly seem to have a lot of commitments we seem to be needing to make. So thank you very much for being flexible in that regard. So look, if there is no further business, Marnie, just as a note, any things we need to remind councillors before we sign off?
Fiona Isles has asked for the community consult on Tuesday that you bring your camping chairs, so that you can get more on the car.
When we go up to Teresa Creek, generally we're sitting out in a circle, so we'll throw a few in, I guess.
Yeah. No, I didn't own a camping chair, sorry.
I can bring you one, councillor.
You just reminded me, I'm going to a party Saturday night on Southern Brook, so I better run that price.
So yeah, I'll certainly throw a few in for those councillors.
I'll get an apology for that.
Okay.
Consultations.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. All right, and I think so that was the only notice of today. Thank you, executive leadership team and acting GMs, appreciate that. Always love to see the depth of certainly the skill inside our organisation. Oh, one thing I would mention, and I hope that obviously all councils would have seen the information on the Queensland Training Awards that was shared from council. So I would expect, and I know that our GMs would certainly be looking to further endorse those prize winners, including our great selves, if we can call it that. But thank you very much to, I know, Lisa and Solomon, and who else was in attendance? I went along as well. It was an absolutely fantastic event. Certainly arranged, not necessarily by us, it was arranged by the department, I think, or that part of the department, the small business training, etc. LaRue, is it LaPrue, is the new regional director. He's only been 4 months into the job, so certainly, and we'll get the chance to certainly recognise the Madonna and the organisation more broadly, but as a region, I think we cleaned up 5 of the 9 awards. So the Emerald Neighbourhood Centre cleaned up. Young Riley Donovan, as Mick and Vicky's young fella, he actually was over at Morris again today. He's an outstanding young man. And then, of course, the man who would shade us all with his colourful shirts, Mr. Pullen from Marist, was recognised for his Trainer of the Year award. And they get a very, very strong support there from Monique Evans, who actually does the vet school drone, vet in schools drone study, and she's obviously looking to expand that. So it was, I don't know whether the organisation definitely intended to impress us by giving us most of the trophies, but we took them anyhow. But people travelled here from all over Queensland, from Mackay, Rockhampton, I think some from Townsville came down. So there was about 200 people in the town hall, so it was a great event, and certainly all of the council team here, particularly in the training area, under Cherie Chant and others there, Anne-Marie White was just exemplary. They, if you ever, we get the numbers here, I know they report to us generally about certainly lots of HR issues, but it's nice to see the proactive work that happens in this place, certainly with trainee and further education for our people that are actually employed in our place. We certainly do not run second to anyone, literally, and to have the numbers read out by the the QTA on that Saturday night. It was outstanding to hear. Very proud person on Saturday night. So we'll get that opportunity, I'm sure, here. But thank you for doing that. So, councillors, I'll declare the meeting closed at 3:45 p.m. Thank you, Joe Burns, for attending online, and thank you to our live streamers. Thank you.